the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would remain standing, I'll ask Jerome to lead us in prayer tonight.
Please make this meeting go really fast and bless everybody here.
Okay, all right, thanks. New business is board discussion on the cannabis law, and I'm going to turn this over to Attorney Murphy.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure everybody's read in the paper and the other media that cannabis will be legal in the state effective January 1. A lot of the aspects of the law are not part of municipal regulation. For example, the village does not have the ability to make possession of marijuana illegal in the village if it's legal by state law. So the decriminalization is here to stay. The ability for individuals to smoke or otherwise consume cannabis is here to stay. Because the law goes into effect January 1, the village board has to make a decision about whether the board wants to allow or potentially allow the legal sale of marijuana. So the purpose is tonight is to have board discussion, and there's really two options. One is to direct us to prepare what's called an opt-out ordinance, which means an ordinance declaring that marijuana sales or marijuana growing, cannabis growing, is illegal in the village of Dolton. The other alternative would be to give direction to staff to potentially allow the sale of cannabis here in the village effective January 1. And let me just give a little bit of the kind of the glossary. There are places called dispensaries. You may have heard that from the law. A dispensary is nothing other than a retail sales facility for cannabis. You may have heard the term cultivation centers or grow centers. Cultivation center or grow centers are nothing other than the wholesalers. So the cultivation centers would grow the material and they'd wholesale it to the retailer, and the retailers will sell it subject to state and local regulation. I don't believe we have any medical marijuana facilities in Dolton, do we?
No.
So
the nearest one is in Posen.
Those that have the medical marijuana license throughout the state are free to convert the medical to a full sale of cannabis. We would, if there's a new building built or if an abandoned building is devoted to it, the village would only stand to gain its share of the property taxes. On the other hand, for the retail sale of cannabis, the legislature has authorized municipalities to impose up to a 3% sales tax on cannabis in addition to the regular sales tax that we charge for food and beverage throughout the village. So nothing will happen tonight. If the board gives the go-ahead for us to at least prepare the paperwork for the village board to consider it, we would do that, and then there'd have to be a public hearing prior to the adoption of any ordinance allowing the retail sale of cannabis. In addition, the law gives the village the authority to regulate where cannabis would be sold. So, for example, if the board decided only to allow it on Sibley Boulevard, for example, we came, well, will they be able to sell cannabis from a 7-Eleven or from a gas station or from a convenience store? The answer is no. The sale is strictly regulated to the so-called dispensaries. There's several hundred licenses available throughout the state, and so that activity will certainly pick up in the next few months. If the village allows by zoning these facilities, that doesn't necessarily mean one's going to locate here. Ban the sale of cannabis altogether. They would give that direction, and at the next board meeting there'd be what's called an opt-out ordinance. On the other hand, if the board is interested in considering allowing cannabis at locations, designated locations throughout the village, we would prepare that ordinance and draft. It'd go back to a public hearing before the board, and then the board would make a final decision. Mayor?
I was just going to mention the fact that for the first 6 months, the only people from what I'm reading in the statute is those facilities that's already selling medical marijuana.
Yeah, the medical marijuana places have a right to do it. They've got a 6-month head start on everybody.
Right. And the total revenue in regards to sales tax plus the additional 3% will equal a total of 13% in sales revenue. That's all.
I can ask, tonight, is this more for discussion purposes? Will there be a vote taken at all tonight? Because my thought was, I'm really curious the community feedback.
No binding vote would be taken tonight. It's more discussion and direction going forward, because the goal is to get something done by the end of this year, end of calendar 19.
Well, our ordinance has to be in place by, is it October 30th or?
Well, in order to put a tax into place,
Yeah.
you would have to do that.
Right, and there's several communities already that have their ordinances in place. I know Monet has theirs, Tinley Park have their ordinances in place, which both of them are have voted yes to for this.
Mayor,
Yes.
can we have a town hall meeting or something before we put it up for a vote, so we can hear from the people before moving forward? Because
That's what we just said.
okay, so it's going to be before next week?
No, it's not going to be before next week. I'm not sure if we wouldn't vote on it next week anyway.
No, nothing
No.
next week. We would, because we're dealing with zoning,
Right.
we would have to have a public hearing, and we'd have a draft ordinance. The earliest that could be would be probably the 21st, which in conjunction with your committee, the whole meeting.
Right.
But the public hearing, Trustee Henyard, would serve the purpose of a town hall.
May I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
One question. I remember the administrator was talking about doing a town hall meeting with, I know this last coffee with the mayor, we had State Representative Will Davis. The next one is State Representative Thaddeus Jones, from my understanding.
Right.
We talked about doing a town hall meeting and trying to get Toy Hutchinson out here, just to inform the residents about the law and how it benefits the community. And just to, if people ask questions outside of here. So that's in the talks, that's in the works, just something to do.
I really appreciate that love. Oh, man, let me get this stuff together. I'm kind of full with the spirit, right? No weapon formed against me.
Another question I have for Attorney Murphy, from what I'm reading, is that they can't just buy it in the store and walk down the street and smoke it.
That's correct. The public consumption is,
A question I have.
Go ahead.
You said it's 30 grams. Is there a limit to how often you can purchase it, or
I don't.
do you monitor that?
I don't think there's a limit to how often you can purchase it. It's that if you get stopped and you have more than 30 grams, then you're in violation. So if you smoke up your 30 grams in one day and you want to go back tonight, as long as you don't have the 30 grams on you, I think it would be considered legal. Reputability, and then we don't want to overflood it, but there could be a possibility for 2 or 3 locations depending on the size of the location.
So are we gearing more towards people that's already in business? What about somebody that might have money, Standout, for instance, and they want to open up a location? Or are we geared towards people just with experience? That's just an example.
Well, I think we should consider, I'm not saying cut the little man out, but I think we should consider people that's been in business and has that experience to reduce the possibility of them coming in and then shutting down a year later or a year and a half later. Because a lot of the smaller shops that actually opened up in Denver were either consumed or bought out by those larger companies, or they went out of business.
I don't know if you're just trying to do a certain area. I know you're saying Sibley because it's visible, but how many on Sibley? Is it going to be, say, 5, 10, 20? That's one of my concerns.
that'll be for discussion once we've got a draft ordinance up. There's a couple ways that the number could be limited. For example, you could limit it numerically. based on X number of licenses issued in the village. Or you could have a distancing requirement. In other words, no two cannabis dispensaries can be located within 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet of each other. But I think to some extent, Trustee Henyard, the market will take care of it, because keep in mind, as I said, there's a limited number of licenses available statewide. And so people are going to have to go through the process to qualify for a state license, to have the wherewithal to pay the fees, and then to have an interest in this geographic area. So those regulations are being written up by the state. They're due to be completed at the end of December. But those are the two typical ways to control it, is to either have a numerical limit altogether on the number of dispensaries, or have a distancing requirement, which will do the same thing indirectly.
And some of these dispensaries are like different car dealerships. You may go in a Cadillac dealership and they got everything there, and then you may go into a Volkswagen dealership and they got a small 3 or 4 cars. Whereas the other dealership or retail facility has 20 cars. It could be a mega store. So those are some of the things we need to look into as far as putting regulations in the number of stores and in the type of products that they handle, and as many products that they handle.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
How does it work for the labs where they test this product at?
How does what?
The labs work for testing?
That's all done at the state level. Regulating, having uniform regulations regarding the potency and all that, that's all done through the state in part of the licensing requirements.
Department of Agriculture.
So what happens if someone wants to come here and set up a lab?
They can't set up a lab. It's state regulated. That's government action.
Well, the way I'm understanding it is people do testing and do labs. So people asking me these questions, so I'm asking you guys, because I don't know. All this is new. So I'm trying to make sure I understand. So they do labs. I will get the information and give it to the board. And I was just trying to get more educated on it from the attorney, because I figured he would be able to direct me.
Have you heard anything about labs? Not unless
That would not be a subject of local municipal regulations, all done through the state Illinois Department of Agriculture at the grow level.
Yeah.
All right.
So in other words, that the potency of the product would be the same in Dolton or in Orland Park or in Hinsdale or in East St. Louis. Like beer, it'd be like, it's like beer.
Yeah. Malt liquor. Okay.
Mayor, if I can ask one thing. I think from or at least my personal opinion, I think it is an opportunity for revenue to come into town. And from that perspective, as well as my own beliefs, I would generally be in favor of it. However, I do, as I've talked to residents, the major concern that I hear is the look of our community, in the sense of we have liquor stores and payday loans, and what's the look that we want to go for. So I turn over, or I go to citizens address from the standpoint of, if there's some compelling things that residents are opposed to it, I would go with the resident, because in my capacity as a trustee, that's my job. But having said that, I do believe that this is a great opportunity for revenue, and I think it would be something that I would recommend moving forward with if there's not overwhelming opposition.
Quick question. You said, Mayor, this is potentially 13% profit. I mean, you said 13% profit?
No, the regular sales tax is 9.75 for Dolton. So you can round that out to 10%, and then the additional 3% that's on the sales of cannabis. So it's a total sales tax percent of 13%.
The board's interested in potentially going forward.
Okay.
So we'll get to work on a draft ordinance.
Okay, great.
Can I be recognized?
Go ahead.
You know, with the, if this board moves to be in favor, see if they be in favor, is to look at some people that have just started instead of those who have been in this and study gaining income. I would like to see somebody that's just starting, just growing, and enhancing the quality of their business. So that's what I have to say on that.
But the thing is that we can, when you talk about limiting the amount of establishments going forward, say for example we said 5, whatever it is. Let's say we save 2 slots for some new businesses incoming, but right off the bat, it's limited to the people that are already in the medical marijuana. It's also an option for us if we wanted to be in the business ourselves.
One more question.
Go ahead.
From my understanding, the state license is $100,000. Is that correct? So even if you say the little man, but the little man still got to come up with $100,000 to even get the state license. So, a person can come with $100,000, still not a little man. So if they get the license, I think if you can get your license, everybody's open to that.
Yeah.
The Y Street, or any other streets any other commercial type areas that make sense. So it would only be permitted on those designated areas that the board by zoning ordinance permits. So it's a board decision.
All right, thanks.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is resolution number 19R-021, requesting federal assistance in order to provide fully effective law enforcement for the residents of the village of Dolton. I asked our village attorney to put a resolution together at the advice of Congresswoman Robin Kelly. I've reached out to every facet, every agency to try to get some emergency funding so we can hire more police officers and also pay for overtime. So she called me last week and asked me had I had the resolution in place yet, and Attorney Murphy was working on it. So I'm just going to read it. Resolution number 19R-021, a resolution requesting federal assistance in order to provide fully effective law enforcement for the residents of the village of Dolton. Whereas over the past several weeks, the village of Dolton has experienced unprecedented violence in the form of shootings, and whereas several shootings have not been connected to one another, and whereas the perpetrators of these armed violence, and we have to change this here. It said the perpetrators of armed violence are not mostly not. Are mostly not. I don't know if we need to change that. It says here are not residents of the village of Dolton. The Justice Department. I've already reached out to the Justice Department for assistance, so hopefully this will help. There is a bill that's going to be sponsored by Senator Harris and Senator Harris and State Representative Thaddeus Jones and I hopefully Will Davis, that is asking for $5 million in emergency assistance from the state. So hopefully between the federal government and the state of Illinois, we can get some emergency funding to hire some police officers and pay for overtime. Department of Justice advised me they normally don't give money to hire police officers. They usually give money for overtime, but our police officers can only work so many hours before they get exhausted.
We can use those funds to hire police officers, or what you just stated, only overtime?
I'm not clear.
According to the resolution, it said the hire of police officers and overtime.
No, it doesn't say overtime. No.
Sorry, the hiring of
police officers.
It says adequately staffed, which would cover all of it.
Yeah.
So you saying they're going to accept that, because you just stated that they normally don't give money to hire them, only to pay for the overtime. So is that what you're saying?
It's not overtime.
No. I said the Justice Department said they normally don't give money to hire police officers. You give money to pay for overtime. But we don't have enough police officers to actually staff what we need. Unnecessary police officers staff what we need. We're down about 17 police officers from where we were. Now, we can't continue to work these police officers to do the overtime. We don't have the bodies to do the overtime. So We're asking for bodies, and of course money, and you got to have money to get the bodies.
Okay, but when is this bill going to be introduced?
I'm not sure. I don't know. All I can do is forward it. We got to pass it and forward it.
So we don't have a plan of when it's going to be introduced. Is we just going to pass it, and you don't have any more information to give the board to tell us what's next after that?
I'm not sure what you're looking for, trustee, but I've explained it to the best of my ability.
Mayor, I'm just talking. It's just discussion.
And I just
This is
answered it.
my concerns. If I agree with this, I want to know what's the next steps after that. I don't want to wait on an answer. So I thought you would have had that tonight to say, okay, trustees, this is the plan going forward. Senator Harris is going to put it on the floor. Thaddeus is going to put it on the floor on this day. They will be in session on this day. It's a plan. You don't have a plan. You're just telling us to vote for something. I'm not in disagreement with it. I'm just telling you I still need more information. I would like a plan. That's all.
May I be recognized, Mayor?
Go ahead.
In working with the legislators, once this is passed, we can communicate with the legislators. They can communicate with us, give us a date when they're going to put this up, when they're going to put it on the floor. I mean, they don't know it right now anyway. I mean, we have to pass this first, whether we pass it or not, then put it in the legislator's hand. Then they have to communicate back with us. From me prior working with them, they would give us a date when this is going to be on the floor. You know, whether we want to attend there or not, we can. But I'm 100% for sure, once they get it into their hands, then they're going to be working on a date that they can forward back to us.
The state legislature is not in session now. I'm trying to get, and not what we're going to try to attempt to pass tonight.
Good evening, board officials, officers, and citizens of Dolton. On the subject of the cannabis situation, if we don't move on this, we're going to be just like with the casinos. Everybody got all the revenue from the casinos. Illinois drug its feet. The entire state of Illinois has drug its feet for years on this. And now they're finally trying to get some casinos, and they don't even have locations yet. And already Indiana is countering with upgrading every casino close to Illinois and moving some others even closer to the Illinois border. My point being in bringing this up is that Denver, I think it's been over 5 years since they had their change of laws in the city of Denver, in the state of Colorado, in places like Denver. Situations like this, even though I understand, the concern about the look that some people seem to be upset about with the payday loans and liquor stores and so forth, I think that's sort of irrelevant to this particular case, simply because if the revenue is anywhere near projected, we can probably eliminate some of these places that you all hate looking at so much. I mean, we can replace some of those tacky looking nail shops and all those other things that we really can't stand. And every time you go into a city, you can always tell when you're in the hood because it's the same places, okay? But if we can get something counter to that, something that brings in more revenue, we don't have to approve all these different types of businesses that we really don't really care for. That's right. This is just an opportunity, the way I look at it. And for those of you who are worried about people coming in from the outside, that if any of you have been listening, especially to stations like radio station WVON, there are investment opportunities for every single person on this planet if they want to get in on dispensaries and things of that nature. You can invest in these businesses and get in on the ground floor and not wait until everybody else has sucked all the life out of it, which is, what some people seem to want us to do. And that's simply not going to work. We're going to be sitting up here with no revenue. Tinley Park is already much better financial situation than we are. Homewood, much better financial situation than we are. If we sit here and let them suck this up, and we sit here with empty pockets again, and we're going to be wondering what happened. So if we build this is on us. And I do have one question, by the way. I understand the 3% tacked on top of the 10%. Does that also apply to the cultivation?
Does not.
No, it's just retail.
Okay, so of the cultivation, who gets all of that?
The cultivation it started from the preliminary stage to the harvesting stage to the packaging stage, and it's sold to the dispensaries.
Okay. I smell sales tax.
Well, that's only if we have cultivation here.
Nope.
Again, that's something that can be negotiated. We have a lot of empty land here.
The state on the cultivation or the grow places, the wholesale warehouses, the state is capturing all of that revenue.
Okay, everything's negotiable.
Not with Springfield.
It's like gas taxes and things of that nature.
Yes, but only because Springfield allowed us to do that. So right now,
Got to give it a shot, man.
well,
That's more money.
when
Got to give it
the
a shot.
state reps come in, then you can talk to them.
Oh, gladly. Thank you.
And also, the cultivation in the Midwest is limited to indoor cultivation and indoor growing. So just be there because of the seasons. The cultivation in the Midwest is temperature controlled, usually facilities.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few questions. I want to ask the board, did you all take a consensus vote on moving forward? Hello?
Nobody disagreed with it.
No, we did.
Nobody disagreed with it. We didn't say stop, so it's going forward.
I can't hear you.
I said nobody disagreed with it. Nobody just said no, that's never move forward, so we moving forward with it.
And my second question is it possible you can bring the individuals in that want to bring this type of business into the community and perhaps do a presentation so some of the residents can get a clear understanding on what they want to put into our community?
I think that would be identified by the presentations from state reps. You know, it's basically cannabis. And like Attorney
I'm talking
Murphy.
about the business, sir. Just a business, and about the safety. We only have X amount of police right now. We're in the same breath asking for more policemen, but we're also asking people to come into our community to buy cannabis, and that might create a problem for the police, which we don't want to have. So that's why I asked, did you think about bringing in them to do a presentation for the residents of this village? We already have 39 liquor stores.
That's not true.
39 liquor licenses.
That's not true.
We had 31, and the new trustees voted when they came in to add 8 more. So that's a total of 39.
Wasn't those licensed for gaming and not liquor stores?
You have to have.
So if you have a gaming facility, you have to have a pouring license.
They
So that
pouring.
means to pour wine.
They pouring
Correct.
liquor.
We're
Why?
not talking about liquor. We're talking about cannabis right now.
Yes.
So any rate, part of the legislation for cannabis is security. It's in there. Those stores have to be secured, and they're going to have to provide their own security. So I don't think you can put any other strain, an additional strain on the police department than any other retail business.
And there's no way you can have a presentation done by the people that want to put the business in here.
I didn't say that.
That's
didn't
what I
answer
was asking.
I just didn't answer it. I'm not sure.
Hey, Mayor and trustees.
How you doing,
I
Pat?
think you answered one of the questions, but I just want to clarify for myself. You said something about the cultivation and dispensing, and you said in Illinois, I think you said that it would be done inside.
No, well, majority of Illinois, yes. The majority of the Midwest, because of our seasons for growing.
Okay.
There is a possibility there could be some outside cultivation, but it's going to be over with in November.
Okay, so if that were the case, would it be like on vacant land that we have? Is there a possibility that someone may attempt to grow on any vacant space that we have that has, like the weeds?
Well,
I'm not talking concrete.
Well, there's always a possibility that people were growing their own private stash, if
Right.
you will. So
True.
It just depends on you if you get discovered, But these companies that are in it right now, They've been through the preliminary stages, they've been through the security stages, they've been through the testing, I'm quite sure. And I doubt if they would risk the amount of investment that they would have to put into this business for any stuff that's not going to be right.
Gotcha. So I'm also thinking, you said something about a freestanding building.
Right.
So to me, freestanding building, not strip mall or anything like that.
That's for the consumption.
For consumption.
Right.
So if we were looking at Sibley, everything on Sibley appears to be a strip mall, except like Burger King or something like that.
No, there's several buildings on Sibley that's, for example, I hear opposition out there, but there's several there's several buildings on Sibley that are freestanding. For example, Jerk Chicken Place, the facility right next door to it. And be quite frank with you, some of these businesses may want to sell out to a dispensary and or a consumer cafe. And also, depending on the amount of revenue that could be projected from a new business, someone may want to start new construction.
Right, that was the point.
You know?
Okay.
Because we do have land on Sibley that's available for new construction. So, depending on the amount of investment that the investor wants to put in, put into the business, there could be some new construction involved.
Okay, and that's the question that I really was thinking of, because, I mean, if the law is passed, it is a law. Okay, so if we're trying to raise money, I mean, I'll leave that up to you all to make that decision. But like the old Kenny's, that vacant lot out there,
Yeah.
would that possibly, or could that possibly be a location that is considered freestanding and would be used for consumption?
Kenny's.
You know, the Dusty's.
Oh, the Dusty's.
The old Dusty's lot next to Taco Bell.
Yeah, well, somebody's coming in there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Glad to hear that. So we when we say freestanding, we're pretty much comfortable with thinking that it is not going into the residential area.
Let me just make a little correction on when I said freestanding. What I meant was the product. So if there's a strip mall and there's 3,000 square foot available, somebody could operate in there. What I meant was that you're not going to be able to sell cannabis at a convenience store as one product, as opposed to it's got to be a specific standalone business, not necessarily a standalone freestanding building.
No, the consumer part.
Smoking
part. The consumer
I'm
part.
talking about the retail.
Yeah, no, not the retail. The smoking part.
Oh, yeah, the smoking part's got to be.
Be freestanding.
It's got to be a freestanding.
It could be like a cigar lounge or a hookah lounge, like that. Now, that's almost at the lower end of making revenue.
Right. Okay.
Because when you have the smoking in the building, you cannot sell alcohol. Okay. So those consumer cafes, they would have other things that they can sell: food, cigars, other products like that, but not alcohol.
Okay, and then these locations, medical and personal,
yes,
would be able to be taken care of at the same location.
I'm not sure about that. I think the legislature gave the opportunity to the medical facilities first dibs at this. Okay. And as Attorney Murphy said, some of those medical facilities are going to convert their licenses in to retail. So they probably, medical, a lot of people, of course, went to their doctors after the marijuana went and said, I got an ailment, my neck bothers me, and the marijuana helps me, and they got the medical marijuana certificate to purchase it. So so now it's just the opposite now. You don't need a doctor's statement if you want to smoke it. Personal consumption up to 30 grams.
Okay, one last thing. In the areas that already have it,
yes,
are there any statistics on increase or decrease in crime, or Nothing has changed
Now,
that would affect the chief and the police officers here?
you know, it's like drugs and alcohol. You know, people say, oh, that alcohol, all them drugs. It's not the drugs, and it's not the alcohol per se. It's the abuse of the drug, and it's the abuse of the alcohol. Now, if you know Long Island iced tea is going to get you knocked off your bench, off your seat, you don't drink a Long Island iced tea. If you know you can only take 2 beers and drive home safely, you drink 2 beers. So it's the abuse of the alcohol and it's the abuse of the drugs that actually causes the problem.
Okay, and I remember some time ago with the DRAM Act that said that if someone
was overserved,
at your location, and they go out, they kill somebody,
right. Now,
then they could be possibly could the village possibly be liable?
No, you know, the dram shop right now, it applies to alcohol.
Right.
I'm not sure if there's any provision in the legislation that says if they let you smoke 6 joints in there, you know, you're going to be held responsible. So,
What dram shop means that if somebody gets drunk at the bar I own and they hurt a third party, the third party can sue the bar for over-serving them. I don't know if that will apply to the cannabis, but the fact of the matter is the village would not be liable at all for giving zoning permission to a cannabis dispensary any more than the village would be liable for giving a liquor license. We're immune from any liability for issuing a permit.
and you cannot, according to the law now, you cannot smoke in the place where you bought it. If there's a consumer cafe, they cannot sell you the weed. You have to bring it in yourself.
Okay.
So if there's a dispensary, you cannot smoke where you bought it unless there's a separately partitioned.
Original House Bill 1438.
Okay, you may want to look in online, House Bill 1438, which gives you a lot in regards to the interpretation of the cannabis law. She goes into expungements, arrests, records, municipal regulation, adult usage, recreational zoning, local control. So, and then Attorney Murphy it even gives you a section here on business licenses, on-premises consumption, and taxes, state taxes generate from sale of cannabis. He's going to come up with the Public Act.
If anybody wants more information, the state's got a lot online. So if you just Google Illinois adult use cannabis summary, the state's got a multi-page summary sheet so you can get acquainted with it. All aspects, not just the zoning part.
Okay.
Good evening. I just have 2 questions. I'm not opposed to us getting extra revenue. We definitely need it. My concern is we used to have a zoning and planning committee where my concern is how many, which you already discussed, and where they will be located. Will you put back a committee maybe with zoning so at least the citizens would have some input or know where these potential places will be?
Well, I don't really think that we need a zoning committee. Because the board can really decide. I think the zoning at that point would be a duplication of what the board can really decide. You know, so.
I'm only saying that, I mean, even as, and I'll just use this as an example with the daycares, like they just start coming and start being everywhere, not to knock anybody's business.
Right.
I'm just asking in regards to will the citizens have some input. My next question would be, and I understand the ordinance that yes, we do need new police officers, but have we even put in the application for even the funds for the overtime? I guess that's what Trustee Henyard was asked, like, did we even ask for money for the overtime? Because any type of savings would be.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's the first person. That's the first place I called, the Justice Department. Actually, I called Robin Kelly's office, and they connected me with the Justice Department.
Right, and you said that the application or the ordinance is for the hiring of new police officers, correct?
Right.
But has anything been put in or asked for the overtime funds? You never said that. You never said that.
I don't think we need more money for overtime. They're already
We
getting
need
paid.
as much money as we can
I
get.
mean,
sir.
these cops now are turning down the overtime
I
because they're
understand
tired.
that, but
Main
has
thing is
it
the bodies.
even been an application or put in? Because whatever savings or whatever funds that we get, you can't never say we don't need no money for overtime, because the money that you spend in overtime, which is $60,000-$70 via, can go towards a new police officer. So don't ever say we don't need any more money.
That's right.
The federal resolution we just passed, or ordinance resolution that we want to submit to Congress, adequate staffing, the emergency funding for adequate staffing. Okay. Now, the first person I reached out to and asked for money was the Justice Department. Okay?
For police or for the overtime, which one?
For police.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say it again. They advised me that they normally don't give money out for police. They give it out for overtime.
I heard that.
Okay? So
I heard that.
it's in. If we fortunate enough to get it, that's fine, and we'll use it for overtime.
So you're going to get something and use it for something that you didn't ask for?
We can't do that. We can't do that. Everything, we got the JAG program, and when we get,
I understand what you're saying.
and when we get those funds, we have to identify
Where you
everything
spend.
we use it for. Matter of
Right.
fact, we're completing it now. Did we complete it, Chief?
Oh, okay.
We completed it Friday.
All right.
It was what, $10,000 left? $10,000 left out of what I think it was 100,000, 90-some thousand dollars that we got. But all of that is used for police and law.
So serious. It's all right. I'm actually not opposed to it coming here either. As the gentleman said, we don't want to miss an opportunity to potentially gain revenue that can help us pay off some of these bills that we owe. But my only concern is, with this new business, if we do decide to bring it in, what is going to be put in place to manage the funds that we do receive, to make sure that we don't do like we have what's happened right now, what got us all the way behind to where we owe $11 million to this person, whatever what's going to be in place to secure the revenue that we generate from this, to make sure that our bills are being paid on time, that we're catching up with old bills that we need to take care of, so that we can start to see a surplus. That's my question.
This board. This board is going to manage how the money is spent.
Go ahead, you got it. I don't know if you watched the last finance committee meetings, the things that's in place to make sure the stuff is being checked monthly to make sure the bills are being paid, and Conspiracy Group is making sure everything's on time. So we just passed the budget, and it had a small surplus. So just watch the finance committee meetings that's on YouTube, and then come to the next one. You can hear Trustee House explain and the discussions about the measures that's in place to make sure the bills are being paid, because them questions are asked at the finance committee meeting. So they are being paid. Everything's on time right now. And we have something in reserve to make sure we pay what we owe to Chicago and everything.
Okay, well, that's good to know. That's some information that we all need to be privy to, that it's already something, because I believe what happened is, when you don't have something set in place, a plan, you plan to fail. And I just want to know that we got something in place to manage the money, should we go along with this, that the revenue that we collect don't get mismanaged like a lot of the money has been being in the past, which we all know. And I'm not pointing no specific person out, but we know the money was mismanaged. I just don't want this money.
Them bonds are almost done being paid off. Final payment. So
Mayor.
moving forward.
Mayor. Mayor, I think that's a good idea what he's stating. We should have a separate fund. When that income do come in, it should be separate. And then we should decide amongst all of us how that money is spent.
Okay. All right, Trustee.
Good evening. I just want to piggyback on something Ms. Fletcher brought up, the zoning committee. I think that that's something that should be considered. While I understand Mayor saying that the board can decide, I'd like to be a part of that, at least discussion, to hear where you want to have these buildings and these venues, whatever they're going to be, because I don't know that I would want one down the street from me. So I think that it would be something to consider, to invite the residents in and hear what our thoughts are, because we live here. Now, Sibley, that's a business district, I get it. but I don't know that I want it around the corner, so I don't think the board should have the final decision without the input of the residents.
True. Good stuff. Thank you.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay? So you're going to consider that?
We already talked about having resident input, having a town hall
Well,
meeting.
no, when she
and-
asked the question, you said that the board could do that. I'm just saying when that comes up, to invite the residents out. I did come late to the meeting, I'm sorry, I do work, but if I missed that part, forgive me, but I did listen when you said the board can do that. I'm just saying when the zoning comes up, invite the residents out.
John,
That's all I have to say.
Very early on, we said that because this involves zoning, the board has to have a public hearing with public notice, newspaper notice, and an opportunity.
Yes, it is. Good evening, Mayor and trustees in the Village of Dolton.
Can you put a mic down some? Yeah.
Also want to know, and I think everyone else has asked that question as well, you said that 7 companies have already approached you.
Yes.
And who are these 7 companies? I would like to know who those 7 companies are. And, you know, I think we as residents should have that opportunity, trustees. I think we all should have that opportunity to know, since you say that there are established businesses already, so that some of us that are not feeling comfortable can feel comfortable. We understand that we're in a money strain. We understand that. We understand that it becomes law as of 2020, right? So, but my thing is that why not be transparent? I mean, if you want us to buy in, even though you have the votes, we understand that, but for transparency, what's the problem with allowing us as residents to know who those companies are? I like the idea of anything else you want, they come and do a presentation to sort of give us a heads up, and that making me feel like I'm a part, even though I don't agree with all of it. There's that part that you could sway me on that presentation, and I understand that it's going to happen. So, but I think for transparency, don't you think that's only fair?
Ms. Creighton.
Yes, sir.
I probably get 12 to 15 different companies, individuals that come and visit me on a monthly basis that want to start a business here in Dolton.
I agree.
Just because 7 people came to me and showed me that they had an interest doesn't mean those 7 people are going to come here.
I understand
because,
that.
Go ahead if you want to talk.
No, I'm just saying, I understand that.
So what they're doing is, they didn't only come to Dolton.
I'm sure.
They've been to other towns and see who's going to give them the best deal, who's going to give them the best locations, what restrictions are going to be. We're in the preliminary stages now, just in discussion. There has not been a decision made as to who's going to be here.
Right.
Now, we'll present that information to the board. We'll probably cut it down to some of the ones that we think are viable, be a good deal here, and then we'll share that with you. But at this point, we're just talking.
I understand that because you mentioned it at the Coffee with the Mayor also. So my thing is just for everyone to feel that they're a part of and it's being, the transparency is there. I think that would be a great idea. And you said, where are the locations? I think you've had some idea of where those locations are that you want, or would you already have in mind something that you vision, because you're a visionary. So I would hope that you had some sites or islands or whatever in mind of where you want to place them.
I've taken all 7 to various locations here in the village of Dolton.
Can we be aware of those?
No, not right now,
why?
because they're not.
I understand that. We understand it's a work in progress.
So let me finish the work.
All right.
Let me finish the work.
Can I have some inclusiveness as you're finishing that work? Can I have a transparency as you're finishing that work?
Ms. Creighton, I am not going to call you every day and say I'm taking somebody over to the lot
Not just
down on
me,
54th
Mayor.
Street. I'm not going to do that, Ms. Creighton. I'm telling you,
you know
Ms.
what?
Creighton, let me
Ha,
say-
ha, 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 ha,
Ms.
ha,
Creighton,
ha.
let me
That's not
just
what I'm
tell
talking
you,
about.
I get 12 to 15 people a month at least ask me about bringing businesses, different type of businesses. Mary, you got the location for this? You know what? 99% of them never pan out.
I understand that, but
You know,
I'm not trying. See, I don't want to be made ha 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 ha. You don't have to call me. I'm not speaking on just Mrs. Creighton. We're talking about taxpayers that live here in the village of Dolton. I'm not talking about, Mayor, I wouldn't, you know what? All I'm talking about being transparent. That's all I'm saying.
Mayor,
You're saying how the community help on other issues. Let the community help on this issue
How much
as
more
well.
transparent can I be when we said we're going to have a town hall meeting?
Well, but that's great. That's great. But letting us know, well, you know what, prospectively, we might think about maybe the warehouses back on Drexel, or maybe, like you said, the jerk chicken place where the person got murdered at. You know, that killing was there.
You just want
They didn't get murdered
Exactly.
at
I'm
the jerk
just-
chicken place.
No, not at the jerk place, not at the jerk chicken place, but it was the next door to it, right? I'm not trying to misquote something, but all I'm saying is for the transparency. And I think AJ asked my final question, and that was, did you have any idea, other than taking it in first reading, second reading, you know, we know a little bit of that politics. So I'm just saying that, just try make us feel that we're
Ms.
part
Creighton,
of it. Thank you,
Ms.
Mayor.
Creighton, there's a lot of preliminary
I
work
understand.
that goes into bringing a business here, checking the due diligence out. And I'm telling you, that 99 point never pan out.
I agree.
You know, I said, well, I never turned down an appointment when people said they want to have have a business come in, you know, because that's what people want to do. They want to be self-employed in some cases, and there's some people that want to be employees and some people want to be employers. But I entertain the thoughts. A lot of the people that come in, that I'm telling you, probably 85, 90% of them said, what can the village do for me? You got any money so you can help me start my business? They're looking for assistance from the village. And we're not in a situation where we can do that. In some cases, we provided some tax incentives for Class 8s. Provide some tax incentives to keep those businesses here and to generate new businesses. But for the most part, we don't have a piggy bank we can go and say, okay, here's $100,000 to help you. Good luck. And that's what most of the people. Do you have any buildings you can give me, Mayor? You got any property you can give me? We don't. We don't. So that's why a lot of them don't pan out.
We understand that. And you mentioned that something was coming into place next to Taco Bell,
Yes.
into the Red Lobster,
Keeping the fingers crossed. The papers are almost completely signed.
almost completely signed.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's a great thing, but,
Thank you.
okay, that's a great thing.
Because you know what I hear? If I say, well, so-and-so is going to come in, it doesn't happen. Well, you said, Mayor, this is going to happen. So I learned from that part already.
But you say that, I mean, we all say that. You say that as well. So I thank you for working with those. And I also have another question. Just thought about Standard Bank. Someone's cleaning that out.
Yes.
Is this something
That was
coming in?
donated to the Land Bank, and the Land Bank has sold it to a nonprofit group.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Trustees, residents, I have a few points I want to bring up. I've been a lifetime resident of Dolton, and I just recently retired as a pharmacist after 45 years. Many of those years were served serving the town, serving Dolton. And I've had discussion on this topic with many of my associates in the pharmacy. And we all have similar thoughts on this. And in that outright, we do not endorse it. And this is because of how we were trained. We were trained in that the purpose of drugs is to relieve pain and suffering and to aid in the healing and improve the quality of life. It's not to be used for recreational purposes. But with the new modified laws, we are in agreement that the proper dispensing and regulation of it, it can be sold professionally within the community. And this is something that I've discussed this with many of the other pharmacists. Many of my friends, they work inner city Chicago, some work in Dolton and in the surrounding communities. We all know that you cannot give up the possible revenue to our town in the benefit that it's going to have for our police, fire, and other municipal services, plus a property tax reduction. As you bring in business into this town, it's going to reduce your property taxes, especially to your seniors. Something was brought up here a little bit ago when we were talking about restrictions. The state would put restrictions, I believe it was mentioned, you're going to put restrictions, the state would, on how many cannabis dispensings in a certain area. I do not believe anything the state says as far as putting a restriction out. This happened to us in 1983. We were one of the very first pharmacies. This was Victor Pharmacy on Pulaski in Calumet City. The state wanted to put lottery they wanted to bring lottery in. At the time, everybody in the state was kind of down on lottery. They didn't want gambling. They approached us and they says, well, you have to understand that all this money for the lottery is going to go towards the educational fund. And you would have area restriction. In other words, you would have a mile radius around where nobody else can sell lottery tickets. And I was a former high school teacher, and I said, I talked to the owner and I says, anything that would benefit the educational system in this state, I would be 100% for it. And he said, you know, that's a good idea. So we had one of the very first lottery terminals over in Calumet City. After about 6 months, we generated so much capital, we had the fire department come in and had to put restrictions because we had too many people in the store. We'd have as many as 120 people in the store. We were over the capacity of the store, so we had to put restrictions how many people could come in the store. The state lottery said, well, you know, they're making pretty good profit over there. Maybe we can cut down that mile radius. And towards the end, we were having all the gas stations, convenience stores, everybody else around there was selling lottery tickets. And as you know, that money that was all supposed to go to the educational system went into the general fund, and a percentage of that was distributed to the educational fund. So that was a total lie, what they told us. But in regards to this, as we've gone through the different discussions on this, you have to remember, alcohol is considered a drug. Anything that's given to the body and it alters the function of the body is considered a drug. So this is something to consider also. But like I said, as a professional, we can't endorse it, but we can see that definitely you cannot turn down the revenue. The revenue is a definite important part. And you have towns like Naperville. Naperville already opted out of this. Dolton is not Naperville. Dolton is not Orland Park. You have to understand that you have to have you have to have business in the town. You have to get it in. And the main thing is to put restrictions on it and to have your location where you're going to have it distributed and have it controlled. That's all I have. Okay.
Thanks, Eric. I just want to read you something. Read you something that Attorney Murphy just pulled up on Google. How a California company is buying up marijuana grow centers in Illinois without a cultivation license. One of the companies that I interviewed with, and I'm going to tell you, the number one company is Cresco. It's Cresco. As of Thursday of last week, they applied for and paid for 4 licenses in the state of Illinois at $100,000 apiece. Now, you talking about investment. IAP has gotten money from high-powered investors that include one of the world's largest asset managers, BlackRock, and investment banking giant Goldman Sachs. Since the firm was listed on the New York Stock Exchange in 2016, its stock price has risen from $18.45 on the first day to, as of yesterday, $92. So you can see if you want to invest in cannabis, you don't have to do the $100,000 license. You can also do it on the stock market. But it talks about here how Senator Troy Hutchinson has been appointed as the Illinois pot czar. So anyway, you may want to do a lot of, do some research, additional research in the cannabis. Thanks, John. In the cannabis. Go ahead, Dan.
There's one thing I forgot to mention while I was looking, researching this. There are only a set number of licenses every state will have. There is no guarantee we're going to get all the licenses that we think we're going to get.
Any license.
Exactly. We may end up with 0.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. So if we drag our feet and drag this out any longer than it has to be, we could lose out completely and sit back and watch everybody else get fat off of our table.
And see, one of the reasons that these other municipalities have already approved it is because they can say, now, we're already in, and some of the same people that came and talked to me about it, they're going to go to them and say, okay, so-and-so's got their license already. Why don't we look for some property and we'll set up here? So that's why it's important for us to get this done right away. And the other factor is that if we can get it done before the end of October, we stand a chance of using some of that tax revenue, sales tax revenue, in the fourth quarter of next year.
Okay. Mayor, if I can, just one thing, because I did hear a couple of questions about what will the money be spent on. That money likely would not be received until our new budget period, which would mean that it would also be included in the budget. So a lot of the things that we would be discussing, talking about as a community and as a board, would be included in that budget. And whether that means we want to separate a different cost center for that money or put it within the general fund, it could all be done realistically and in a way that everybody sees it.
Okay, I'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Okay, it's been motion, second to adjourn. Roll call.
Trustee Denton.
Aye.
Trustee Steve.
Aye.
Trustee House.
Aye.
Trustee Brown. Aye. Trustee Holmes.
Aye.
Trustee Henyard.
Aye.
I really appreciate that love. Oh, man, let me get this stuff together. I'm kind of full with the spirit, right? No weapon formed against me.
La première fois.